whether the team is performing clean or unsightly. We'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I'm your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So head coach Ron Rivera was on the radio program of the Junkies this morning, and he made a very, very profound statement. And it's funny that he actually made this statement because I've read comments from fans that think that Ron hasn't owned up to his end of the slow start for this team this year and seems to be trying to deflect blame. And I haven't gotten that sense. And so he made a quote that I think is very apt, and I think it's very poignant because I do feel that this team has talent, and that's why I'm not willing to just jump off the ship right now and dive off the deep end and give up on this team already. And I want to say this before I get into Rivera's quote and why I feel the way that I feel. If you're one of those we're going 3-14 people after 3 games already, if you're one of those guys, if you're 1-16, this team's a 1-16 team after 3 games, do me a huge favor. Go watch baseball. The playoffs start in a couple of weeks. Go watch baseball. And when that's over, the NBA will have gotten their season kicked off. Go watch the NBA. Watch everything but this team. Come back in April when the draft gets here, and then come back and talk to me. But don't jump back on board when this team starts winning football games all of a sudden and act as if you were down for the cause the entire time. Don't come back when the team is continuing to tank and lose and say, I told you we were going to stink. Just go and take all of that negativity and go watch baseball. Okay? We're 3 games in, and all of you want to, not all of you, some of you want to throw this season in the garbage because you had these ridiculous expectations going into the season, which was ridiculous in itself. And now that you see that those ridiculous expectations aren't going to be met, you're willing to throw the whole season in the garbage because of it. The reason I don't think this team is dead yet is the same reason I wasn't giving up on the team last year. Now, one of the biggest reasons last year was the division was terrible. And that was the only thing keeping us afloat in terms of having hope for the postseason. But I saw a team that had talent last year. We've got even more of it this year. I saw a team that plays hard. Now, obviously, we're not playing as hard, but I know it's in there. I know that is in there, and I believe in this coaching staff. So I'm not willing to give up on this team. In past years, in 2016 and 2017, when we had some of the worst defensive statistics in the league and we couldn't get off the field on 3rd downs, I was hopeless then because A, we were poorly coached, and B, we didn't have any talent defensively. We were supposed to be bad. We didn't have any talent, and to make matters worse, we didn't have a coach that could extract all of the little bit of talent that we had out of the players that we had. So there was no hope in 16 or 17 from a defensive standpoint. That's not the case right now. We have plenty of talent on the defensive side of the football, and we just haven't figured it out quite yet. And I put a lot of that on the coaching staff. You're damn right. I put a lot of the onus on the staff. The players have to be better. The coaches can't go out there and execute for them. But I don't think they're always putting these players in the best positions to succeed. And that's where Ron's comment comes into play. And he essentially said, look, if the team doesn't grow and learn, then that's on my ass. And you're damn right it is. If you can't get this team that we feel like is much more talented than last year's team, and really more talented than any team we've seen here in Washington probably for the better part of 20 years. We haven't had a truly talented roster since probably 2005. I think that was a really good football team. Still lacking what you needed out of the quarterback position, but the skilled players were there on offense and defense back in '05. It's probably been the better part of 15 years since we've seen a team this talented. So if you ask me, it's not just on the players, it's on the coaches to extract every single ounce of talent and upside and potential out of this team, put them in the right positions to succeed, and maximize that value and start to turn these losses into wins. And Rivera talked about, watching the tape and having a feeling he was going to see the same mistakes being committed. Well, then that's on you as a coaching staff if these players can't get it right. If they don't understand that, hey, this is how we do things and this is how you're going to do it. And if you're not going to do it that way, if you can't understand this, we'll get someone else in there that can do it that way. I believe in this team because the talent is simply too good. And again, we might have overrated the talent on this team. That's very possible. I don't think we've done that necessarily on the defensive side of the football. I do think there is a very realistic possibility that we've done that on the offensive side of the football. I really do. I really came into the season thinking that this wide receiver core was so much more upgraded. And again, I may feel a lot differently once Curtis Samuel, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names, comes back into the lineup and gives us a spark. But remember, I always wanted Corey Davis. Not to say that Corey Davis is a world beater, but I felt like he was a true number 2 wide receiver, whereas I wasn't sure if that was Curtis Samuel or not. We'll see how they utilize him when they finally do get him back into the lineup and what kind of boost he gives to this offense, and if he, in fact, does take some tension away from Terry, because right now I just don't see – like, Diami's going to be good. I'm not worried about him, but he's not ready to be what we want him to be yet. And that's why I said we really need a true number 2 so that Diami doesn't have to feel the weight of needing to be that guy. And I think somebody else made a really good point about Taylor Heinicke. And I really didn't talk about Heinicke much yesterday because I really wanted to focus more on the defense and all of the things that were going wrong on that side of the football. And then, kind of mix in a little bit of talk on the offensive side. But most of what I wanted to talk about yesterday was this defensive collapse that we've seen to start this season that has just been dumbfounding because none of us saw this coming. You could have been one of those people out there that thought this was going to be a top 5 defense. I did not, but we can both agree that we didn't think this defense would be this bad either. Even if you thought it was top 5 and I thought it was going to be somewhere in the top 12 at the end of the day, and it still might be, you know what I mean? But it's still so early. That's why I keep trying to hammer into your brains. It's still so early in the season. We've looked really bad, but you can turn things around when you have talent. When you don't have talent and you look bad, it's probably going to remain that way because nothing's really going to change the fact that you don't have talent. When you have talent, you can turn it around, and we have talent on defense, so we can turn it around. Doesn't have to stay this way. But, with Taylor Heinicke, he did not play well in week number 3 versus the Buffalo Bills. That was his first real road test of his NFL career. He did not pass it. Ron Rivera was hypercritical of Taylor Heinicke and said that he needed to play within the offensive scheme, take what the defense was giving him, not try to press. And all of that sounds great, and he's absolutely 110% spot on. Taylor Heinicke tried to do too much. I felt like the moment got big for him when this team fell behind. He felt like he needed to be the one to bring us back. And he even said himself that there's no such thing as a 20-point play in the NFL. And so you just got to, you play within the game, play within the scheme and within the play and just continue to give the team a chance. Even if you have to punt and you're down 20, you got to punt. I mean, don't make it worse by trying to fit it into quadruple coverage and take a 20-point deficit and turn it into a 27-point deficit. Like, that's not helping the situation. So, sometimes when you squeeze harder because you want it so bad, you actually are being counterproductive. And that's kind of what he did against Buffalo. And so I'm not giving up on him either. He's going to have to play better, obviously. And I think he will. That was a learning experience for him. That, you go out there and you try to do too much and you try to do things that are a little bit outside of your skill set and talents, okay? Because we got to keep it in proper perspective. Taylor Heinicke isn't a supremely gifted thrower of the football. I mean, he's not a big guy. He doesn't look like the prototypical quarterback that you're trying to have be your franchise guy, but neither does Russell Wilson. But you got to find a way to have those intangibles, and you got to know when to say when. And he tried to do a little bit too much, and he really hurt this football team in the game on Sunday. And so he's got to be much, much better. But somebody made a great point in the comment section. And whether it was Taylor Heineke starting or it was Ryan Fitzpatrick, the onus was never supposed to be on the quarterback in this offense. It was never supposed to be that way. No matter who was under center, whether it was Heineke or if it was Ryan Fitzpatrick like it was supposed to be all along. The onus was never supposed to be on the offense to carry this team. Now, we had talked all offseason about how this offense is going to have to be able to score because we're going to be playing some high-octane offenses this season. And our defense isn't going to be able to keep all of these offenses down. And at some point, you're going to have to score 33 or 35 or 38 to beat one of these teams in a shootout. We knew that was going to be the case in some games. We didn't expect that to be the case every single week. And it hasn't been that way. It wasn't that way in week one, even though we felt really bad coming out of week one. We only gave up 20 points, and 7 of those points directly can be traced back to the fumble by Antonio Gibson. So essentially, you gave up 13 points as a defense in week one. As bad as we felt leaving that game and felt like we couldn't get stops when we needed to, we only gave up 20 points and really 13 if you take away that Antonio Gibson fumble. That said, the Giants game was a farce. That was 29 points. That's tough to stomach. And you give up 29 points to the Giants. 3 of those you could probably directly chalk up to the Taylor Heineke interception. It still doesn't make any difference. If the Giants don't settle for 87 field goals in that game, they're going to score up over 30, probably 40 points in that ball game. And if we don't get the help of the officials and a drop by Slayton, they probably do score 40 in that ball game. But that's nor here nor there. They didn't, but they scored a bunch of points and they scored on a bunch of possessions, and that's what's important. Whereas the Chargers didn't score on a bunch of possessions, the Giants scored on 7 possessions, and the Bills scored on 8 possessions. That's ridiculous, and you're not going to win a bunch of games giving up that many scoring drives in a ball game. It doesn't matter if they're kicking field goals or scoring touchdowns. You give up that many scoring drives, more likely than not, you're going to end up on the short end of the stick. However, we were able to beat the Giants. Obviously, we weren't as lucky in week 3 versus the Bills. But that person said the onus was not supposed to be on the offense. It's not supposed to be on Taylor Heineke. It's not supposed to be on Ryan Fitzpatrick had he been playing. The onus is supposed to be on this defense to take pressure off of the offense and let them kind of find their way and get their footing up underneath them. And that hasn't happened yet. Honestly speaking, the first week you get the injury to Fitzpatrick. Everything's kind of helter-skelter from that point forward. But as I mentioned, we got crushed in the time of possession in week 1. So it was hard for the offense to get into a great rhythm. If you go 3 and out and then the defense gives up a 7-minute drive, you get back on the field and then you only get 1 first down, then you punt again, and then the defense gives up a 6-minute drive, you're not getting that many opportunities. So that's why week 1, it felt like the defense didn't do its job, because even though they didn't give up a bunch of points, they gave up a bunch of plays, a bunch of third downs, and obviously time of possession was skewed in the way of the Chargers. In week 2, all of those first downs converted into points. Just so happened to be that they were field goals and not touchdowns, which is what saved us in that game. And then in the Bills game, they scored touchdowns. They went 4 of 6 in the red zone, and they scored touchdowns. That was the biggest difference. They didn't settle for field goals. They went for the jugular, and they hit it. And so when you look at this team, Taylor Heineke and the offense, I feel like are pressing at times because, they feel like they've got to either keep pace with the team that is capable of scoring 40 because the defense is showing no signs of slowing that team down, or they are pressing because they're down big and they got to try to rally back. And at the end of the day, they just need to play within themselves. And back to Ron's quote of, if this team doesn't learn and grow, it's on his ass. He's absolutely right, because this team has talent, I think, on both sides of the football. You saw plays on the offensive side where you say, That's grade A. Top level, top shelf talent with the Antonio Gibson screen for a touchdown. We know what Terry is. Even though Logan Thomas fumbled, Logan Thomas going up top and grabbing that football, boxing out that cornerback for the touchdown, that's top shelf stuff, okay? That's high level football. We have guys that can make plays. I like what Cam Sims did, even though he had to drop. When he touched the football, he made some things happen. Got catch the damn ball. That was one of my bugaboos with him last year. Is he was inconsistent. You know, you get Cam in the Pittsburgh game and he's catching every damn thing, and then you get Cam in one of these other games like the playoff game and he's dropping every damn thing. So I just need him to be consistent. But we got some players on offense. We can score. We can do some things. They just got to settle in and do what is being coached to do. And the staff has to do a better job of putting these players in better positions to be successful, and that goes for offense and defense. But you shouldn't be waving the white flag after 3 weeks of football. If you are, go watch baseball. Playoffs start in a couple of weeks. Should be great theater. More likely than not, you're going to get a Yankees, Red Sox, wild card game. Go watch baseball. NBA starting up its training camp here shortly. Go watch some basketball. Come back after the season's done. If you think this season is already done and it's already been written that we're going to be 3-14 or 1-16, which is just asinine, then go watch baseball. In other news, the NFC East doesn't look like the NFC least, at least not this year because of the Dallas Cowboys so far. Now, I'm pretty sure you've had a chance to check out that game last night, or at least some highlights, hear about it. If you didn't see it, it was as bad as the score indicates, and it could have been a lot worse, and it probably should have been a lot worse. The Cowboys were dominant last night, 41-21 over the Philadelphia Eagles. And I talked about the Cowboys this offseason as being the most potent offense, and a lot of you gave me pushback and said, hey, I don't think the Cowboys offense is better than ours. And I'm like, I don't know why you feel that way, but okay. Okay. The Cowboys have a better quarterback. The Cowboys have a better receiving core. The Cowboys have a better running back position. And I don't want to hear about Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick. They're good. They're not better than the combo of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Sorry, not sorry. I think their tight end position is better than ours as well. They got 2, we got 1. Okay? And they're the guy that they had as their backup last year that got in because their main guy got injured, he's balling this year in Dalton Schultz, in case you haven't noticed. He was outstanding last night. So they're better at the tight end position, and you could argue their offensive line, when healthy, is better than ours as well. I don't know if they're deeper than us, but their depth is being tested right now because La'el Collins is suspended, and I think they had another guy out with injury. But whatever the case may be, their offense is better than, of course, their quarterback position is way better than ours. That's not up for debate. Their offense is better, period. End of discussion. Where we were supposed to have the upper hand was defense. Well, their defense was howling last night. They were woofing, huffing and puffing, and blew the Eagles' house all the way down. Okay? Eagles' house, we knew it on offense, made of straw. Made of straw. And they huffed and they puffed and they blew that house down. And they destroyed the Eagles' offense and defense last night in ways that even the most loyal Eagles fan had to say, all right, we give up. We don't want any more. We tap out. And so what the Cowboys effectively did last night was they put the NFC East on notice. And they said, look, this is what it is. We got Dak Prescott. We got better coaching on the defensive side of the football. We back. If you want to win this division, you're going to have to come and get us. It's not their division. It's our division, which I'm not giving it up until they take it from us. But they're not going to make it easy. That's for damn sure. And if you look at their schedule, speaking of easy, while everybody else is over here playing Murderer's Row, the Cowboys, and this is what happens when you finish in, third place like they did last year. This is what happens. You get the benefit of a softer schedule. And I'm not mad about that. We got the benefit of a soft schedule the year before that when we won the division in 2020. So I'm not upset about that. You want to win the division? This is, again, with great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. We won the division. You flexed your muscles. You won the division. So now you got a bigger responsibility that you have to shoulder. So they got Carolina this week without Christian McCaffrey. This is going to be the best defense they've seen to this point of the season. We'll see how they handle that. But if they win that game, their schedule really lightens up. They get the Giants after that, like the Falcons, and some very winnable games, essentially. Now, there's a Bronco in there, and, there are some games that they could lose. Carolina and Denver are the two games in there in this next stretch of like 7 where you're like, if they don't lose to those teams, who's really going to beat them? I mean, there's some really soft cupcake games in there where you expect the Cowboys to take advantage. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, but the Giants are done. If we take a look at the NFC East as a whole and just put aside what the Cowboys did last night, we're going to put an asterisk next to the Cowboys because right now they're in the lead in the NFC East, and they look like the best team in the division right now. And I don't care how much you hate the Cowboys, you have to be able to admit when, a team just looks flat out better than the rest, and they look better than everybody else in the division right now. That said, the Eagles, to me, are frauds. We felt that way after week 1, and all the Eagles fans were, in all of the different comment sections, and they were, puffing out their chest and huffing and puffing and talking about this and that, and I haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks. The regulars, the Alexes, and those guys of the world. Yeah, no, they're fine. The Phillies Ace 34. Those guys are fine. Okay, they weren't the ones I'm talking about. It's all the rest of the dudes that only show up when they get dubs. Those are the ones I'm talking about. Haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks. And I don't expect to hear from them for a couple more because the Eagles aren't going to beat the Chiefs this week. And the Giants are done. They stick a fork in them. Their schedule is just as brutal as ours. And it doesn't let up for another 6 or 7 weeks. They might not win a game until week 9 or 10 if they're not careful. They better beat the Saints this week. That's all I got to say to them. They better find a way to go and upset the Saints this week, or else they're probably going to be 0-7 or 8 before they finally get one. It's that bad. So I'm not worried about the Giants. Really, it's just us and the Cowboys, to be honest with you. I'm not worried about the Eagles either. It's just us and the Cowboys. And I'm not willing to relinquish our crown to them just because they destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles and they went toe-to-toe with the Buccaneers but still lost that game. Just like we could easily be 0-3 right now. Probably should be 0-3, but you could argue we should have won the first game of the season versus the Chargers. We could easily be 0-3. We could easily be 2-1, but we're 1-2. The Cowboys, you could say the same thing about them. They could easily be not 0-3. Okay, there was never any doubt about last night's game. But if they started the season 0-2, do they have as much confidence as they had last night to do what they did to the Eagles? I don't know. But they could easily be 1-2 right now, for sure. And they could easily be 3-0. And you could argue they should be 3-0. Okay? So it goes both ways with both of these teams, Dallas and us. There's no way we're 3-0. We weren't going to beat Buffalo, whether we went into that game 2-0 or not. We weren't going to beat Buffalo. We weren't going to beat them. But we most certainly could be 2-1 right now. We could easily be 0-3. And Dallas could be 1-2 right now, or 3-0, but they're 2-1. Bottom line is, I don't think the Cowboys are running away with this division and hiding. Not unless we let them. Not unless we let them. So I think the defense is going to get better.
I know a lot of you think that I'm crazy for thinking that, and that's fine. Okay? That's fine. They haven't shown you any reason to, they haven't given you a reason to believe that they're going to improve. I just continue to lean on the fact that we've got talent and we've got coaching that's going to end up getting this thing turned around. That's what I'm hanging my hat on. Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, and the talent that we have on the defensive side of the football. Because honestly, I feel like the offense has been fine. Hasn't been great. They turned it over last game, but the offense has been fine. Had the defense been better, the offense would have been good enough in the first two games, and we would have had a much better shot in the third game had the defense been better, but it hasn't been. This is the week that it needs to turn it around and build some confidence and start turning this thing in the right direction. This is the week. You can't do it this week, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. If you can't do it this week, then you can start talking about 3-14. Then you can start talking about 1-16. And we're still not going to go 1-16 nor 3-14. But then you can start talking about these crazy numbers and this preposterousness, if that's even a word, you know, all these ridiculous claims that are being made about this team. Then you could have all of the fun you want then. Start talking about the 2022 draft and who we should get with the top 5 pick. Then those conversations can begin. But only then. I don't think those conversations are going to be had because we're going to win this week. One last tidbit of news. Wes Martin, former 4th round pick of this team back in 2019. High hopes for him at one time to be one of the starting guards on this football team. Never panned out for him, was on the practice squad. The Giants, who have been decimated by injuries and have one of the worst offensive lines in football, went ahead and scooped up Wes Martin off of our practice squad, signed him to their active roster. He is now a New York Football Giant. So we'll see if Washington decides to fill that practice squad void with another player. They've already made a couple of roster moves, releasing a couple of guys from the practice squad. They worked out 8 players today. We'll see if they sign some other guys, you know, here in the near future, and what they decide to do with the spots that have been freed up on the practice squad. Now 3 open practice squad spots, and of course 1 active roster spot still available, and I'm assuming that is for Curtis Samuel should he be ready. So that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on this installment of Washington Football Nightly. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow night live on the program when we'll start to turn our attention to the Atlanta Falcons and take our first look at the Falcons, what they bring to the table, and what we'll need to do to get a victory. This season is far from over, guys. We're 3 games in to a 17-game season. Look, I'm going to say something that you're going to just brush off, and maybe you should just dust this off your shoulder and act as if I didn't even say this. We're 1-2. So are the Chiefs. So are the Seahawks. You think their fan bases are thinking that their season is over because they started the season off 1-2? And they play in much tougher divisions than we do. Hell, everybody in our division could be, 1-3, 2-2 next week. They got 3-0 teams in their divisions, okay? The Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams are both 3-0, while the Seattle Seahawks sit at 1-2. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs have the 3-0 Raiders and the 3-0 Broncos and the 2-1 Chargers ahead of them in their division, okay? So they're not even sitting in a division like we are, where the division leader is 2-1 and everybody else stinks. You think their fan bases think the season's over? Now, you're going to say, well, they have Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes, 2 former Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Touche. I say to that, touche. But I say to that, we have more defensive talent than both of those teams. And you're going to say, well, our defense stinks right now. And I'm going to say, you're right, but we can change that. We've got enough time to change that around and give ourselves a fighting chance. And that's what I'm going to hang my hat on. I'd much rather have Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson. Trust me. Okay? But I know we don't have that, but what we do have is defensive talent, and we can still turn this thing around, and I expect to do that. So
that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Remember, I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. Nothing's changed. It's still Ron's plan. Ron's plan. And it's still TLH, the legend of Heineke. It grows. And in order to have a major comeback, sometimes you need a minor setback. I'm looking for that big-time comeback on Sunday from Taylor Heineke. We'll see if we get it or not, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you tomorrow for Washington Football Nightly Live. You guys have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.